we're beginning to see some of the early signs of it, of the pace of firings slowly ticking up. See that in jobless claims data. Now, if you look at it in an absolute number, it's obviously very low, but the trajectory has clearly changed. And it will be interesting to see, because companies have gone a couple of years desperate to find people. And you wonder, now that they have them, how quick are they going to be to fire them? The first inclination will be, let me just slow the pace of hiring.
Right, job freezes.
Right, that's where we're going to be in certain industries right now. Now, the restaurant that needs extra help, they're still going to be searching for that person. But if you look at, for example, the big tech companies that we've specifically heard this from, that they're freezing hiring, that is the first reaction to an economic slowdown. That is the first reaction to profit margins that are compressing, and you're doing your best to try to protect it.
Yeah, and let me just chime in on that. I don't have the list in front of me, but I've read it before in previous videos. I mean, these are the big companies. These are the Microsofts, the Googles, the Metas, the Teslas, the Twitters,
even Tesla.
Coinbase. Yeah, exactly. So, when we talk about the indices and we say, hey, it's really the big companies that are kind of pushing the action around, these are the big companies that are really setting the tone for the economy. And these guys are already at the hiring freeze stage.
Right. And you talk about, bodies floating to the surface. What also happens in an economic expansion and money's flowing free is that companies just go on these hiring binges. They're all competing for high quality labor. They're all competing for any kind of labor if they feel like they need more of it, and they overhire. So not only is there the freezing of incremental hiring, then they start to say, okay, we overhired in this area, we overhired in this area, we don't need this role, we don't need this role, we can consolidate this, we can consolidate that. That is also now happening as well. And I expect, as we see, the months that go from here, you'll see more of these so-called redundancies, as companies like to call it, as a nice way of saying firings. They call it redundancies. That will start to pick up from here as well.
Great. And, I've been showing a chart, and I'll try to find it here again, of layoffs in the tech industry, and they're back. If you look at the Q2 chart here, we're not quite done with Q2 yet. There's still a little bit of time left, and we're already back up to levels that we were at like in July of 2020, when we were bringing the entire global economy into shutdown. So it is a little bit surprising to me, at least, to see layoffs at that magnitude this soon in the process. Because you're right, Peter, we generally go through the process of job freezes, then you're doing cuts, right? You're like cutting bonuses, you're cutting hours, maybe you're firing your contractors, but companies really try to delay as much as possible firing talent, because they're so costly to hire, and they want to make sure that they're really certain that they're going to go into slower growth ahead. So the fact that we're already seeing, a noticeable number of layoffs this early in the stage, from my perspective, is kind of telling here. But anyways, Peter, go ahead.
You bring up an important point, because it's a lot of it in technology was where a lot of that sort of excessive hiring took place.
Over-hiring away, yeah.
Right, because you look at it on the flip side, you look what's happening in the airline industry, is because there's not enough people, they're having to cancel thousands of flights every weekend, because they had such a retrenchment in response to COVID. Now that travel has rebounded basically to pre-COVID levels, staffing numbers have not even come close to rebounding to pre-COVID levels. So at least in that industry, you're not going to see that. You're going to see there's still the need for more pilots and flight attendants and FAA people and so on.
Right. And so you're right. We're in kind of the noisy part of the process here, where not every sector is experiencing this equally. In the airline space, it's a little bit different in the fact that this is sort of highly specialized. You can't just go pull a random person off the street and teach them to be a pilot. And if we do look at other sectors like retail, we have seen companies like Target, Walmart, and Amazon basically say, we're finding ourselves overstaffed. We built up a lot of inventory because we were expecting demand to, return as people are going back out again after COVID, and they've staffed up in advance for that. And they're finding, oh my gosh, we just have too much inventory and too many people sitting around not doing anything. So lots of noise, but I would say we're seeing more and more examples than we have for the past couple of years of overstaffing in companies that are looking to reduce versus hire. If you enjoyed this video clip, click here to watch another one you should like.